There's a sentence you've been saying that's keeping you broke, and you don't even realize you're saying it. It's automatic. It's instant. It shows up the moment you see something you want, the moment an opportunity appears, the moment you imagine a life bigger than the one you're living right now. And that sentence, that reflexive response, has been building an invisible wall between you and everything trying to reach you. You say it when you scroll past something expensive, when someone invites you somewhere you can't afford, when you dream about a different life and reality crashes back in. You say, I can't. And every time you do, you're not just stating a fact. You're giving an instruction to your mind, to the universe, to every possibility waiting on the other side of that wall. You're saying, stop here. Don't show me how. Don't find a way. And just stop. And it does. It stops. Not because it has to, but because you told it to. Now here's why this video found you right now. You're standing at the exact moment where that sentence is about to lose its power over you. You're beginning to feel it. That restlessness, that frustration with the same patterns, the same limits, the same ceiling you keep hitting. You've been living in a reality you didn't choose, but you've been reinforcing it with your language. And somewhere inside you, something's starting to shift. You're starting to notice how often you say no to yourself before life even gets a chance to say yes. You're starting to see how your words have been shaping your world. And that awareness, that uncomfortable recognition, that's the crack in the wall. That's the beginning of abundance trying to break through. And you're about to let it. Let me show you what's really happening when you say, I can't. You think you're being realistic, practical, honest about your current situation, but your brain doesn't hear honesty. It hears a command, because here's what most people don't understand about how your mind works. It's not designed to accept limitations. It's designed to solve problems. It's designed to find pathways. It's designed to figure things out. But it will only do that if you give it a problem to solve. When you make a statement, when you say, I can't afford that, your brain registers it as final. Case closed. No solution needed. But when you ask a question, when you say, how could I afford that? Everything changes. Your brain doesn't care if you currently have the answer. It only cares that you asked. And once you ask, it starts working. It starts scanning for possibilities, opportunities, solutions you couldn't see when you were stuck in the statement. That shift from statement to question, that's not just positive thinking. That's activating the part of your mind that creates realities instead of accepting them. And you've been living with it turned off. Here's what I need you to understand about abundance. It's not something you chase. It's not something you earn through suffering. It's something you allow. And most people have been blocking it their entire lives without realizing it. Because scarcity feels safe. Scarcity feels predictable. If you don't believe you can have more, you can't be disappointed when you don't get it. If you don't ask how, you don't have to face the discomfort of trying and failing. So you've been protecting yourself with your language, with your beliefs, with the automatic I can't that shuts down possibility before it even starts. But that protection has a cost. And the cost is the life you're not living, the opportunities you're not seeing, the version of yourself you're not becoming. Because you've been so focused on not being disappointed that you forgot to leave room for being surprised. And abundance, real abundance, it only shows up for people willing to be surprised. for people willing to ask how even when they don't see the way yet. Now let me give you the pattern, the one that separates people drowning in lack from people swimming in abundance. It's not intelligence, it's not connections, it's not luck, it's language. Show me how someone talks to themselves, and I'll show you their bank account. Show me the questions they ask, and I'll show you the life they're building. People stuck in scarcity speak in statements. I can't afford this. I don't have enough. It's too expensive. That's not for people like me. Every statement, a period. Every period, a closed door. People living in abundance speak in questions. How could I afford this? What would I need to change? Who could help me figure this out? What's one step I could take today? Every question a search. Every search an opening. And here's what happens when you start speaking in questions. Your reality starts rearranging itself to answer them. Not because the universe is magical, but because you're finally paying attention to what was always there. The opportunities you were walking past, the ideas you were dismissing, the people who could help that you weren't asking. Abundance isn't created, it's revealed. And it only reveals itself to people asking the right questions. Let me tell you what's been happening to you that you haven't named yet. You've been watching other people live lives you want. And instead of asking how they got there, you've been telling yourself why you can't. They had advantages. They got lucky. They have something you don't. And maybe that's true. Maybe they did have advantages. But here's what's also true. They asked how when you said, I can't. And that question, that simple reframe opened doors you didn't even know existed. Because when you ask how, you start noticing patterns. You start learning. You start experimenting. You start moving. And movement, even messy, confused, trial and error movement, that's what creates momentum. That's what shifts you from spectator to participant, from someone watching abundance happen for other people to someone creating it for yourself, and you're ready for that shift. Now, that's why this message found you, because somewhere inside you've already started asking, you just haven't fully committed to it yet. Here's the metaphor that'll change everything. Imagine you've been standing in a room your entire life, and the walls of that room are covered in mirrors. Everywhere you look, you see yourself, your current reality, your current limits, your current bank account. And you've been staring at those mirrors so long that you forgot they're just reflections. You forgot there's a door. And that door doesn't open by pushing. It opens by asking. Every time you say, I can't, you're staring at the mirrors. Hypnotized by what you see. Convinced that what's reflected is all that exists. But every time you ask, how could I? You turn toward the door. You stop looking at the reflection and start looking for the exit. And here's what nobody tells you. The door was never locked. You just never thought to ask where it was. And the moment you start asking, the moment you shift from accepting your reflection to questioning it, the door becomes visible. And on the other side of that door is every version of abundance you've been telling yourself you can't have. Not because you weren't worthy, but because you weren't asking. Now, here's where most people stumble. They hear this and they think, okay, I'll start asking how. But they ask once, maybe twice. And when the answer doesn't immediately appear, they go back to, I can't. They go back to the mirrors because asking feels uncomfortable. Asking requires you to sit in the not knowing, to live in the gap between the question and the answer. And most people can't tolerate that gap. They need certainty. They need proof before they believe. But abundance doesn't work like that. Abundance requires you to ask before you see, to believe before you have evidence, to hold the question long enough for your brain, for the universe, for reality itself to start rearranging to answer it. And that takes faith, not blind faith, but active faith, the kind that keeps asking even when nothing's changing yet, the kind that keeps looking for the door even when all you see are mirrors. That's the faith that shifts you from scarcity to abundance, and you're developing it right now, whether you realize it or not. Here's what I need you to do with this moment, with this message, with this realization that your language has been limiting your life. Stop saying, I can't. I don't care how true it feels. I don't care how accurate it is based on your current circumstances. Stop saying it and start asking, how could I? Even if you don't believe the answer exists yet, even if it feels fake, even if you think you're lying to yourself, ask anyway. Because your brain doesn't care if you believe it. It only cares that you asked. And once you ask, it starts working. It starts scanning. It starts solving. And what you'll find is that the answers were always there. You just weren't looking for them because you'd already decided they didn't exist. That's the difference between scarcity and abundance. Scarcity decides, abundance discovers, and you're about to become a discoverer. And here's what happens when you make this shift. When you genuinely start asking instead of stating. When you stop accepting your current reality as permanent and start questioning how to change it. Opportunities appear that weren't there before. Not because they're new, but because you're finally seeing them. People show up who can help. Not because they just arrived in your life, but because you're finally noticing them. Ideas come that actually work. Not because you suddenly got smarter, but because you stopped shutting down possibilities before you explored them. Abundance doesn't flood your life because the universe suddenly decided to bless you. It floods your life because you finally removed the dam. The dam built out of I can't statements. The dam built out of limiting beliefs. The dam built out of fear disguised as realism. And once that dam breaks, once you genuinely shift from statements to questions, you'll be shocked at how fast things move, how quickly opportunities multiply, how suddenly money starts flowing from places you didn't even know existed. That's not magic. That's what happens when you align your language with abundance instead of scarcity. And you're about to experience it firsthand. If this resonated, if you felt the truth of what I'm saying, if you're ready to stop limiting yourself with your own words, drop 3 words in the comments, just 3 words. Abundance is mine. That's it. No explanation, no hesitation, just that declaration. Because when you claim it publicly, when you say it out loud, something shifts. You move from hoping to deciding, and deciding is what activates everything. So write it. Abundance is mine. And if you know someone still stuck in I can't thinking, someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been blocking their own blessings with their language, send this to them. Tell them to write it too, because sometimes we need permission to want more. Permission to ask how instead of accepting no. And this is that permission. Given, claimed, activated. Here's what I want you to think about tonight. Before you fall asleep, before you drift off into whatever dream your subconscious conjures, ask yourself this. What if every time you said, I can't, you were actually saying, I won't? What if the limitations you think are external are actually internal? What if the life you want, the abundance you crave, the freedom you dream about, what if it's been waiting on the other side of a question you've been too afraid to ask? And what if tonight, right now, in this moment, you finally asked it? How would that change tomorrow? How would that change next month? How would that change the entire trajectory of your life? Because here's the truth, nobody wants to tell you. You're not stuck because the world won't let you move. You're stuck because you keep telling yourself you can't. And the moment you change that sentence into a question, the moment you genuinely ask, how could I? Instead of accepting, I can't, that's the moment everything shifts. That's the moment abundance stops being something you chase and becomes something you allow. So ask yourself, are you ready to stop protecting yourself from disappointment and start opening yourself to possibility? Because abundance won't force its way into your life, but it will flood in the second you ask, how?